Hey guys!
Ah! Don't mess with me. This kitty's got claws and I'm not afraid to use them.
So this time it's Enid's turn. Surprise! Well, I guess let's get into it. This should be fun. Okay, for the materials I mainly use lilac, pink, orange and peach tones in both acrylic and cotton yarn. I'll have a full list of everything that I use in the description box below. I constructed Enid a bit differently from what I usually do, and what I mean by that is that I actually made the shoes separately from the body this time. But after I crocheted the shoes, I just became really worried about the whole stability of the amigurumi, so I wanted to do something to rectify that. As you can see, the shoe is fairly floppy and has no internal or external support, and my fix for this was to take some 5mm cork board sheets and cut them to size. I then sealed the cork board with some polyacrylic sealant just to stiffen it up a bit, and then glued them onto the bottom of the shoes to become the outer sole of the shoe. I actually wanted to sculpt the sole a bit to give it that blocky sole look, but to be honest, the cork is horrible material to work with. It's a nightmare to cut, and it just doesn't accept the fine detail at all. It took all I had just to get to the shape that I wanted, and that's being generous. The cork board I used comes with a self-adhesive backing, but to be completely honest, I didn't really trust that to hold by itself, so I added a little extra glue and hoped that the two of them, they could create a firmer and better bond, so we can only see if it will stand the test of time. Maybe if I'd used foam instead, I would have been able to get the desired effect or even better results, but I'm saving that for a certain pig-tailed girl who's allergic to colour. I also then cut out some cardboard, sealed it again with some polyacrylic sealant and glued them to the back of the inside of the shoes to give some support to the sides of the shoes. I made 2 of them and set them aside to dry, as I would be coming back to them later. Time to begin on her feet. Because I made her shoes separately, I had to change the feet a bit by making them smaller so that they would fit into the shoes, and also allowed me to cover her feet with socks. So starting with white yarn, I crocheted the sock covered feet before switching to a peach coloured yarn for her skin tone. After joining these together, I carried on just a little bit off camera and will come back when it's time to work on the skirt. As I made my way up the body, I left some front loops for me to crochet the skirt into. I wasn't sure how I was going to deal with the skirt at this point, and I actually considered crocheting a teeny tiny skirt using sewing thread, but I ran out of time to make that work the way I wanted it to. Anyway, leaving the loops meant that I could figure that out later on, and my final plan for the skirt was to crochet a simple white base, then using some lace I would stitch that onto the top. In the end, I ended up ditching the lace and decided to go for a tiny scalloped edge instead, because obviously the lace sitting on top or underneath the skirt would have just been incongruous, and I just didn't like it. It looked off. I then went on to crochet some tiny flowers. So using size 5 DMC yarn, I crocheted some simple flowers in various sizes and colours. I made a whole bunch of these off camera and then just proceeded to sew them onto the layer of the skirt. I will cut to a point where I have them mostly done, because as usual, you never make as many as you need. If you think you've made enough flowers, trust me, you haven't. So by this point, looking underneath, we have a nice little nest of tail ends that will need to be weaved in later. I mean, sure, I'll get to it at some point. When finishing up the torso, I just made sure to alternate my colours between the pink, the purple, orange and yellow, and then back to pink again. Making sure to use stuffing as I went, I carried on up the torso until the point where I had to install the arms. The arms were also something I did slightly differently this time around. I guess this is the project for trying things differently. I chose the striped jumper she wears when she faces off with Wednesday in the dorm room, and as you can see in this scene, she has her sleeves pushed up her arms. So to recreate the pulled back sleeves, I crocheted the arms to be slightly longer. The principle here will be that if the arms are slightly longer, but the wire I use is still the usual length, when I squash the arms down to fit into the wire frame, I should get the illusion of a scrumpled jumper that's been pulled up the arms. That's the theory anyway. With that said, I went ahead and did that off camera simply because it's a fiddly nightmare and I don't trust myself to stay in frame. So there is no special trick here, you're just not missing much. Yes, looks good. Now all that is left to do is to carry on with the head, install the eyes and finish up the body. Back to the shoes again, and now that they're completely and utterly dry, I took some matching Scoubidou string and using some strong glue, I just used it to cover that seam between the cork and the yarn. I just finished off the jumper by crocheting 2 lengths of ribbing for the neck area and the waist area, and then I just stitched them on. Enid has blonde hair in a short bob with soft curls at the end, so that's what I had in mind when creating her wig cap. This was also done mostly off camera because it's just tedious work, but I was also a bit nervous about the next part. I figured if I did a quick wig off camera and this idea fails, no harm, no foul. I can then go back and whip up another wig cap if I need it, of course, but Enid has to be extra and has pink dye on one side of her hair and blue dye on the other, and only at the ends as well, so technically I could have crocheted this, but the color changes can be quite obvious, and again, if what I had in mind failed, I might just have to do that anyway. Okay, so this is the part where I forget I can create swatches. Which is exactly what I did. So I created, I think it was 4 strands, I can't remember, you'll be able to see on camera soon. I created a swatch and then I tried to test out some different materials because quite frankly I couldn't trust myself with actual fabric dyes. Plus it's such a small area that actually needs to be dyed and I didn't want to waste the dye. So turns out they're actually a bit expensive. So whilst I was out and about, I bought some markers, some Sharpie lookalikes I guess, as well as a Scribble brand, and I think I got this from the works, but it was like a pastel highlight markers, which I thought, oh, they look like Enid colours, they'll be able to work. Let's try them out on the swatches. Trying these markers out just didn't work. I mean, I don't know what I was expecting. I thought, I'll just be able to colour it in, not a problem. The yarn should be able to soak it up, but no, it's acrylic. It's horrendous. It doesn't work. It looks blotchy. I don't like the way it turns out, and yeah, there we go. So we're going to go back to what I originally intended to do, but I just wasn't convinced it was going to work. So breaking out the chalk pastels, I decided to try some out on the swatch, and immediately, or rather instantly, the results were much better and I was completely blown away. So at the end of the day, sticking with the original plan probably is the best thing to do. And I don't know what I was thinking with the highlighters. To be honest, in my mind I thought it would have been easier, but as it turns out the soft pastels were definitely the way to go. Having finally decided on the dyeing medium to be the chalk pastels, I then literally went through using some really cute pastel elastic bands and sectioned off Enid's hair. Now I realized that in the show she has several different dye combinations, but I went with the pink and blue because it's the one that's in the scene that you see her in, and it's the one that I actually like the best. So using the elastic bands to color code and give me a guide, I sectioned off the hair starting off with pink, going to blue, pink again, blue, pink and blue, to sort of end with blue on the other side, pink on one side and blue on the last side. Using the brush, I built up the colour at the bottom of the strands, making sure to go slowly so that I didn't end up with too much colour. While checking some images, I just worked in the soft pastels, making sure to do the left side in blue and the right side in pink. I also used the elastic bands that were color coded so that I wouldn't color the wrong sections the wrong color. After I was done building up the color, I then used some hairspray to fix the pigment. Obviously I didn't do this on camera because I just didn't want to be sitting in a cloud of hairspray. But now I don't know whether this trick will actually work, but I remember using this to fix charcoal to my sketch pads after my life drawing lessons way back when. And at the end of the day, it's a good enough short-term solution. I just have to see how well the colour holds in the long term, I guess. Okay, so we don't actually see Enid making the snoods, but she claims she made them, so we'll just have to take her word for it. And if she can make such claims, how could I not do the same? I'm not going to be beaten by a fictional character. Anyway, the snood is fairly simple, and if you'd like to see how I made mine, I've got a separate video of how I did that, and I will leave a link in the iCard above and in the description box below. With the snood finished, it will actually add some bulk to her head, so I'll probably only put it on for a few pictures before removing it, or if she gets cold. Anyway, I think I only ended up doing one picture. Anyway, with that nearly done, I still need to finish off her hair and sew in all those tiny flowers I made earlier. And while I do that, I'd like to thank you all for watching. Please like, share, comment, and even consider subscribing if you like the content I create. Don't forget to hit that bell button to be notified whenever I upload a new video. And now I'll leave you with my flawlessly clawless wolf cub crochet cutie. See you in the next one. Bye!